Bonjour et bienvenue sur la deuxième partie de l'introduction de On peut le dire. Today we're going to look at vowel phonemes and consonant phonemes, and then we're going to slightly zoom in onto vowel phonemes in French. So let's get started. Quickest introduction so far. Hey. Vowel phonemes. Vowel phonemes are basically sounds that we produce by letting all the air go out of our mouth or nose or both not at the same time, but without an obstacle at all. So we change the sounds that we make by changing the way our vocal cords, for example, move, and some of our organs in our mouth and our tongue and maybe the velum in the mouth and all of that. But none of these little changes will completely stop the air from coming out. Vowel phonemes have all the air coming out without any obstacle. Consonant phonemes, however, are made by blocking the air coming out on its way out, and that's what creates the sound. So that means, on a practical stance, for example, you can hold a vowel phoneme basically as long as you have breath. So if you start doing an ah, you can keep it up until you run out of breath. O, oo, same thing. But for a consonant, you can't, because it's much more snappy like that. The air is blocked and then suddenly poof, it's released. And so that's a consonant sound. In this book that I read earlier this year, here, How Language Began, Daniel Everett, it was a really interesting read, a bit difficult at times, so it was quite nice to have a challenge. I've learned that basically the vowels are the main phonemes in human languages, and then consonants evolved as a way to articulate things better, to articulate words better, and to make the vowels more understandable and clearer. So it's as if I take one of my beloved metaphors, hopefully this one will work for you too. So the vowels will be your tiles on the floor of language, and then or on the wall even, because you just want to look at the tiles and see the message it gives and blah blah blah. So the vowels are your tiles, and then the consonants will be the grouting in between. That helps you see from one tile to the next, and it helps you really understand what tile begins and ends where. So that's probably my only metaphor today, I think, which is maybe good. I don't know. I like metaphors. You already know. So let's zoom in on vowel phonemes in particular now. We have three different ways to classify or to organize our vowel phonemes in French. And I'm going to show you all three, and then we're going to look at how we can plot them on a diagram. So if you like maths and science a little bit, you might like the fact that it's going to be on a little graph. So first distinction is between oral vowels and nasal vowels. Oral vowels basically are based, that's repetitive and redundant and boring. Oral vowels have to do with the mouth. So all the air comes out through your mouth, and that's it. That's what oral means. Nasal vowels, as the name says it, have to do with your nose as well as your mouth. So you involve both of them now. So with oral vowels, all of the air that we need to get out to make a sound, all of that air comes out through your mouth only. If you try something, this might make the video longer, but it's never mind, it's going to be fun. If you run your tongue along the roof of your mouth towards the back, at some point the roof of your mouth, instead of being hard and solid, will become really soft, and you might even feel it go up and down a little bit, but before you get to the very back. So give it a go now. I'm going to give it a go too, so we might all look silly at the same time. And I can't talk at the same time as I'm doing it because my tongue is going to be running. So through the top of the roof of the mouth, and you just run it backwards until you find that moment when it softens. I've got mine. That area where it softens and it kind of goes up and down a bit, it's called the velum. I didn't write that word down. If you're interested, let's write it down here. The velum. Here. So this bit of your mouth, when you say an oral phoneme, it lifts and it blocks the airway getting into your nose. Okay? And that means that you're going to create an oral sound, and all the air is coming out through your mouth because the velum has blocked the nasal airways. So for example, you've got your a, e, and o. All the air comes out through your mouth. Typically you can hold these as long as you have breath as well. Okay, so if I put my hand here and I do ah, I feel some warmth on my fingers. It works better if you have cold hands. So if you don't yet, try and make them colder. Maybe stick them in the fridge for 5 minutes and then come back. Not 5 minutes, that's going to be excessive. However, with nasal sounds, what happens is your velum, instead of staying up, will go down just enough so that the air that you're going to breathe out for speaking will come out both through your mouth and through your nose. And that's why we call it nasal. This means if you put a cold finger under your nostrils, you can check whether you're doing a nasal sound properly or not. Okay? So if we go from ah, where I felt nothing here, to ah, suddenly I felt warmth here. And that's because I went from ah, oral, no air coming to the top of my finger, to ah, nasal. Some air still comes out through my mouth, but a lot of it comes out through my nose and hits the back of my finger. So you can experiment like that, switching from these to these. So we have ah, en, un, and o, on. Okay? Ironically, the nasal sounds are much harder to do when you have a cold. So people think that, you sound like you have a cold if you do nasal sounds, but it's really hard to do them right if you have a big cold. So let's experiment a bit. And don't hesitate and do it with me, because it's quite impressive the first time you do it. So let's do ah, en, ah, en. Then we're going to this one and this one here. So un, en. I did that wrong. I repeated the first one. Un, un. So you should feel more air here. And then we'll do the last one. So going from o to on. O, on. O, on. So hopefully you've had a chance to experiment and you understand oral and nasal vowels a bit better. The next distinction is a little bit simpler. So I only have 2 examples for that because it's pretty obvious. It's vowels that are more or less rounded. And it does what it says on the tin, basically. So your more rounded vowels, your lips will look more round. And then your less rounded vowels, your lips might look more like a line. So for example, a, I. Which is also why in a lot of languages, when you want to take a picture of someone, you make them say a word that has a lot of E sounds in it. Because even when you're not smiling, if you say E for ages, you look like you're smiling because your mouth stretches to the side. So in French, typically we say oui titi, which means marmoset. And it's also a funny word to say anyway. So you end up laughing and maybe looking ridiculous and having your eyes closed on the photo. Last distinction is between vowels that are made from the front of the mouth and the ones that come from the back of the mouth. So for example, from the front you have I, and from the back, U. I personally found these distinctions a little bit abstract at first when I saw them and investigated it. So I just experimented with doing 2 very extreme opposites. And I and U are basically opposites in terms of front versus back. So they're quite nice to use to experiment and to figure out and feel what it means. So let's do that. If you do I, and try and focus on the mouth, on the shape that your tongue is taking in your mouth. Personally, I feel like my tongue is a bit like that. So it's mostly flat. So that's the back of the mouth going that way. And then that's towards the front, towards my teeth. When I do I, the side of my tongue are touching the inside of my top cheeks, top teeth, I. So the inside of my top teeth are touched by the sides of my tongue, I, but the tip of my tongue is going down and forward. Okay? I. Therefore, that's a front vowel. Now, if we do U, suddenly, this is what I feel like my tongue is doing inside my mouth. It's curling backwards, and it's curling away from my teeth as well. So the sound is going to come more from here. Okay? So back vowel. U, back, I, front. All right? Now, the way we show that on a graph is basically, this is the graph we are using in black, and then I've put a little key in purple, blue, and red. The more a vowel is to this side of the graph, the more it's going to be a front vowel. The more it's to that side, the more it's going to be a back vowel. The higher up it is on the graph, the less rounded a vowel it will be, and the more to the bottom it goes, the more rounded it is. So on top of using the IPA that I talked about in the last video, we also will plot, so to speak, our IPA codes in this graph so that you have a rough idea. If you have a vowel that's towards the middle, then it's not a sharply defined one in terms of front, back, rounded, stretched. It's going to be an average one. So in French, that's why you got your really, because is like That's probably a reason why we use when we don't know. You're like, do I go front, back, stretched, round? I don't know. So I'll just go in the middle. Okay? So that's where we show them. What about oral versus nasal vowels? Instead of being plotted in the specific areas, they're shown with this little symbol on top of the IPA code. So you probably noticed earlier. Let me re-find the right one. Here. This is basically this code with a little tilde on top. That says nasal. Same here. So it's the same symbol, we just add a tilde on top to say nasal. Okay? So this is how we're going to end up using this graph. And I'm going to have a bigger one made neater, and then we'll start seeing some IPA codes and doing some practicing with various vowel sounds. I want to start with the vowel sounds because they are really the ones that you guys tend to think, it's fine, it's the R that's hard, and I promise you it's not. So there you go. That was it for today. We went over 10 minutes, but hopefully you had a bit of fun with the weird faces and finding your velum in your mouth and experimenting with tongue position. So that's going to be it for us today. Like, comment, subscribe, and share if it helps. And if you have any tips or any questions or anything you think could help, or especially could help me help you, please let me know. Au revoir.